including but not limited to advocating for federal climate investments. A reminder, this event is being recorded for you all. As many of you, I'm sure, have been following the various forms that these investments have taken, how they have been watered down over the past year plus, and of course, how Senator Manchin once again did his Lucy and the football trick last week, as we keep saying. Of course, our team, as I'm sure so many of you were just absolutely devastated after all the hard work to get to this point, to have this one senator walk away, siding with polluters over people once again. Although this is far from the outcome we wanted, this is a time to be pushing for bold climate action more than ever before. We have come such a long way in centering the climate crisis across the board, and we will not allow this one setback to impede bold change. We say that within every crisis is an opportunity, and it is imperative that we continue advocating, pushing for, and implementing intersectional solutions that will create a more sustainable and equitable future, and that we properly address the intergenerational injustice that is climate change. Tonight, we're going to hear from some wonderful policy experts on some other avenues to implement bold climate actions, such as on the state level and through an executive branch suite of actions, among some other avenues. So with that, I will introduce the League of Conservation Voters Deputy Legislative Director, Madeleine Foote. Of course, we will be doing a question and answer section after her presentation. So please put any questions or comments in the chat box that we'll address later on. I'm sure you are all Zoom pros by now. So please place your questions and comments in the chat box. Thank you again for being here, Madeleine, and I will pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Seth, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. As Seth said, my name is Madeleine Foote, and I'm the Deputy Legislative Director for LCV National. So LCV and our state partners, including Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, alongside our climate action teams and climate action activists like you on this call, have been working extremely hard for the last 18 months and longer, really, to get Congress to pass legislation that will act on the climate crisis while also addressing environmental justice and delivering jobs. So kind of where do we stand? I want to give you a little bit more detail on update of reconciliation. So as everyone probably knows, while the House of Representatives passed a bill last fall, things have been held up in the Senate by Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. I won't go through all the twists and turns of the Manchin saga, but after walking away from negotiations last December, then coming back to the table and now stalling again on the talks over concerns about inflation, it's pretty clear that Senator Manchin is not acting in good faith and not sincerely interested in getting a climate bill to the president's desk. And as is clear from the heat waves ravaging across Europe and much of the US, massive flooding and heat waves in China, wildfires, and so many other devastating disasters that continue to pile up around the world, climate change is here and we have to act now. So I don't want to waste too much more of my time talking about Senator Manchin because he's already taken up too much of our collective brain power. But I will note that he is the #1 recipient of oil and gas contributions in Congress. They've donated almost $800,000 to him this year alone. So this man and every Republican in Congress bankrolled by big oil does not care about the future of our children and our families. They only care about money and power. But do not forget that, like I said, Manchin and the 49 Republicans who are also in the Senate who could vote for climate action, don't forget about those Republicans too. But it's clear the system is broken when one man can take down the priorities of an entire political party and sabotage legislation that the vast majority of people in this country support and deserve. So while we should absolutely lay blame at Manchin's feet and then stop giving him so much attention, the unfortunate reality is we do still need him and his vote for the rest of this year for other critical pieces of our agenda, especially confirming President Biden's judicial picks. So as we saw with the recent Supreme Court decision in West Virginia versus EPA that limited the EPA's authority to regulate emissions from power plants, the judicial branch is incredibly important for our priorities. The previous president confirmed lots of judges, many of whom are young and will be around for a very long time. So it's absolutely critical that President Biden is able to appoint and confirm as many judges through the Senate as possible to counteract a judicial branch that is becoming more conservative and more radical. So what do we do then? I won't sugarcoat it. Without federal climate legislation, it's going to be a lot harder for the US to meet our climate goals, save money people on their energy bills, and achieve energy security, but we are absolutely not giving up. And I know all of you won't give up either. The League of Conservation Voters and our state partners have been fighting for 50 years, and we're not backing down. All of us must continue to push our political leaders to pursue every avenue for action on climate, environmental, and racial justice, and good paying union jobs. And we still have a lot of options on the table. So we've kind of come up with a 4-part action plan to keep moving forward on climate. And so the first pillar of that plan is Congress. So the senator who shall not be named still has the option to show us in the fall or after the election that he wants action on climate change. And I'll put a heavy emphasis here on show because we all know his words are pretty meaningless at this point. But there are other vehicles that provide opportunities to get climate justice and jobs investments done, including adding amendments to the narrow reconciliation bill that the Senate will do later this summer. That's mostly going to be focused on prescription drugs. And we could also potentially move a tax package later this year that it has some of the important clean energy tax investments that we need. The annual appropriations process is also happening right now with a deadline of September 30th, and that provides a key opportunity to secure budget increases for key programs and agencies like the EPA, Office of Interior, Department of Energy, and White House Council on Environmental Quality that are important to climate and the environment and public health. And again, we need the Senate to speed up confirmations for federal judges and nominees for leading agencies to ensure that we have the people in place to craft regulations and enforce the law and uphold strong environmental protections in the court. The second pillar of the plan is President Biden and his administration. So as Sheldon Whitehouse, Senator from Rhode Island, tweeted, it's time for President Biden to go into climate beast mode. Biden gave a speech just yesterday saying that he considers climate change an emergency and saying that since Congress isn't acting, he is going to do so. Now, he announced a few things that his administration is going to do right now, and we expect them to roll out a lot more actions over the next few weeks. But we need the president to use all his power and authority right now to take strong actions, and we have to be loud and push them to go faster and be bolder than they have been. This president made the most ambitious commitments we've seen on the campaign trail, and the administration is implementing a whole of government response unlike any we've seen before, but it is time to kick that into high gear. So though not an exhaustive list, a few actions we'd like to see from the Biden administration move quickly on is number one, declare a formal climate national emergency. So this would unlock additional authorities that would allow the president to move much more quickly than he has, including supercharging the Defense Production Act to spur clean energy manufacturing and deployment at public buildings and spaces, redirect and focus grants, loans, research, and development funding across all departments and agencies to focus on clean energy solutions and environmental justice communities, use the economic power of the federal government to curb climate risk by requiring companies to disclose their climate risks and directing federal agencies to buy clean, cutting toxic and climate pollution to protect all communities and advance environmental justice by expediting rules that would require 100% of new cars and buses to be tailpipe pollution free by 2035 and all trucks by 2040, while also being produced with strong labor standards. Setting strong climate, clean air, and water standards for power plants, requiring hard to decarbonize industries to use carbon capture and sequestration and other technologies, and cutting methane pollution from the oil and gas industry 65% by 2025 and 90% by 2030, and setting strong clean air standards for soot and smog. We also would like to see the administration do no new fossil fuel leasing on public lands and waters. Quickly do a wind down of production on existing fossil fuel leases, and reject new fossil fuel infrastructure projects like the Conoco Phillips Willow project, LNG export infrastructure, and new pipelines. And a couple ways that you can plug in the near future. So there's currently a comment period open for the president's proposed 5-year leasing plan for offshore drilling. So we need to get comments into the administration expressing that the climate crisis demands no new drilling on our public lands and waters. And we have a comment easy form that you can use, and I'll throw that in the chat here in just a minute. And then this fall, we also expect the EPA to release an additional proposal to regulate methane pollution from the oil and gas industry. And methane is a highly potent contributor to climate change, and we need the agency to go further in requiring all polluters to eliminate methane emissions all along the process while we wait to eliminate reliance on natural gas entirely. So we hope you will join us in pushing the agency to set strong standards in that rulemaking. The third pillar of our action plan is the states. And I will let Katie touch more on this, but while we do need federal action, state action on climate and environmental justice is a critical piece to solving the climate puzzle. State legislatures and governors have a lot of power to reduce climate pollution, invest in clean energy jobs, and ensure that clean energy transition centers racial and economic justice. So thanks a lot to work from LCV state partners and folks like you electing pro-climate state legislators and governors, and then pushing them to act. More than 40% of people already live in a place that is on a path to 100% clean energy, which is very exciting and is a really awesome start. And we can and must get this number even higher. And then the last piece is elections. So Senator Manchin has once again clarified that we do not have a functional pro-climate majority in the Senate. We need to throw everything we have into electing at least 2 more true proven environmental champions to the Senate this fall and make his opposition irrelevant. We must hold the House and elect more environmental champions at the state and local level as well. So this is not a failure of Democrats. This is a failure of one person and a lot of Republicans in Congress, and we need bigger pro-environment majorities. And 99% of House and Senate Democrats are united in support of climate justice and jobs investment, and that is huge. That is really huge. So that is our plan from where we go from here. And so I hope I've helped you feel energized about the possibilities that still lie in front of us to take real action to tackle the climate crisis. We are not giving up, and we hope you will keep fighting alongside us for a safer, cleaner, and healthier future for every family and community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Madeleine, for laying all that out for us so beautifully as you did, giving us all these amazing new avenues to be taking action, and for being with us tonight, sharing your expertise in what is undoubtedly a busy few weeks on your end. So next, I will pass it off to the Conservation Voters of PA's Political Director, Katie Blume. Katie, thank you for being here tonight as well.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. And Madeleine, it is always a pleasure to hear from you. So for those of you who don't know, because we have a couple different avenues you could have joined this event tonight, Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, much like National League of Conservation Voters, we are the state affiliate. So here in Pennsylvania, we are one of the best political voices for the environment here, doing accountability programs, working on elections, and of course, trying to get climate change legislation through our legislature. So a little bit more on what is happening in Pennsylvania, sort of that third pillar that Madeleine was talking about. One thing people don't understand, and we just saw it in Pennsylvania's budget cycle, is sometimes federal regulations, federal grant programs, or investments into states can also be affected by what state legislatures do. So we have a bill that is out there that, you know, we're going to cap some old wells in Pennsylvania, conventional wells in Pennsylvania, but the legislature just passed a bill. Basically, if one of those companies walks away from doing their job capping the well, it's going to be on the taxpayers' back to fix. So we have a lot of things like that happening in Pennsylvania, a lot of continued corporate giveaways. We saw a lot of, you know, we're going to get rid of gas tax in Pennsylvania or do a gas tax holiday and things like that. However, they're just cut, basically for perpetuity, just cut the corporate tax rate in Pennsylvania even more. So that's another corporate giveaway when we know that Pennsylvanians are hurting right now. And the other thing is, we have been an extractive state for the entirety of our history. Lumber, coal, conventional oil, fracking. We have a lot to clean up. And that is a really great thing that the federal government has done with the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that the Biden administration passed earlier this year. That's where we are going to be doing this well capping and plugging. We're going to have some reclaimed mine land programs. We are looking forward to increased electric vehicle infrastructure, public transit investments. Amtrak, everyone's talking about Amtrak, especially in Eastern Pennsylvania and my friends in Northeast Pennsylvania and the Lehigh Valley. And it's really exciting. So we are going to continue to push on that. We're going to continue to try to get the state legislature to introduce some of their own items to keep that going. So it's not just that one-time federal investment. And it's going to be a longer process. This is not going to be happening in 6 months. So we're going to need all of you to stay engaged with us regularly as we keep hitting each next milestone. But some of the other things that are going on, and I did see a question in the chat, and I was actually going to touch on this in some of my comments. Reggie is a huge thing still here in Pennsylvania. There have been a lot of questions about, well, what does the West Virginia versus EPA case have to do with Reggie? Oh my God, you know, can we regulate power plants? Yes. That case actually does not have any substantial impact on Pennsylvania joining a multi-state consortium. So that is different. That is not a regulatory agency trying to do something. And that was only for the federal level. So with that, Reggie is still important. Yes, it is tied up in the courts right now. We expect it to be tied up in the courts for a little while yet. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has appealed the temporary injunction to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. All of this will be happening throughout the summer. We are still very optimistic. We have absolutely fabulous lawyers in the environmental space in Pennsylvania with wonderful assists from national teams. And we will continue to keep doing that. But one thing we're starting to look forward to, and this is probably going to be more, you know, January to June, the next budget session, is when we are in the Reggie auction, what do we do with those proceeds? And some of you have probably heard me on 50 other webinars talking about this, but we want to make sure that the Reggie proceeds in Pennsylvania are invested in equitable ways for environmental justice communities that invest in workers transitioning. And this brings really good union jobs as we move forward, and really addresses a lot of the racial justice issues we see with pollution in Pennsylvania. So we're going to keep pushing on that. The other thing that we are gearing up to talk more about are things, this also came out of the Infrastructure Act. The federal level is some monies related to, carbon capture, hydrogen, and there is already a narrative out there that that can be Pennsylvania's climate solution. No. The environmental community in Pennsylvania is quite unified on recognizing that is not our climate solution policy. That can help reduce some emissions when it is proven, when it becomes economically viable, which it is not yet. So that's going to be a thing we're going to be working on to make sure that all environmental voices are heard at the table. Keep your eyes out for things like that. And the other thing we're going to be working on here in Pennsylvania is the 2022 Shared Vision Pennsylvania Common Environmental Agenda. This was a process that the groundwork was laid last year. We did do one in 2018. Very excited about this year's process. We were very, very intentional. Conservation voters, Sierra Club, Penn Future, 1PA, Make the Road, all these wonderful organizations, we all came together, and from the beginning, we reached out to environmental justice organizations and communities first. We put 3 broad topics out there that we wanted to kind of have things covered. And then we let those communities start to lay out what they wanted to see in a common environmental agenda. And I am really excited about this. It is an awesome vision. We talk about things that Pennsylvania can do for air quality, water quality, the energy sector. One of the great things in the energy sector, why is Pennsylvania still subsidizing billions of dollars to the fossil fuel industry, but we're not subsidizing the solar industry? We need to increase our alternative energy standards portfolio, which we've frankly needed to do for a very long time, which also makes Reggie work better in terms of reducing emissions. But we also talk about things like housing, democracy, labor, conservation, because all of these issues are very intersectional, especially in Pennsylvania. I know that later on, my colleague Jess here in Pennsylvania is going to be dropping some things. We are going to be doing some launches across the state, sort of a big launch and then some regional launches for everybody, talking about some of these issues. It is on paper, not on the booklet, is about a 50-page document, but it's very pretty with pictures and graphs and charts, so you can stay excited about it. But those are real potential policy solutions that we have in there for Pennsylvania, for Pennsylvanians, to give legislators a real roadmap going forward. I can't imagine if we gave this to the legislature tomorrow, they would enact all of them, given the makeup. We have a very anti-environmental legislature at the moment. The majority is, but going forward, that's what we want to do. So I kind of also want to echo what Madeleine said about elections. We need people to go check out the LCV scorecard. We need everybody to go check out the conservation voters scorecard, which we'll be releasing 2-ish weeks. We're still working on it. They had us scrambling for some last votes during the budget season. I don't think we've ever scored four bills in 1 week, but we did. And that will be coming out from Conservation Voters of PA soon about your state legislators as well. And I can give you an extra highlight that we have some Republican members who have improved their scores. We've had Democrats who've improved their scores, but we actually have a couple more 0% legislators than we had in the past. We get it's a numbers game. So we really need to do some work around that, and you can always check out the CVPA website, as the new one will be live soon. for the new scorecard, as well as, who we're out there talking about who are pro-environmental legislators, because there is so much that can be done, whether it is appointing members to citizens advisory committees at the Department of Environmental Protection, serving on commissions to the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. There's a lot that our legislators will have the power to do. Thank you, Jess, for dropping in those links. And I think I kind of covered everything, but I do want to say I'm actually kind of excited too. Even though we will not talk about the senator who shall not be named, I would really like a maybe like a Harry Potter themed meme or something if anyone wants to make me one. But although it is upsetting, September 30th, as Madeleine talked about, we have a budget that's being worked on, but we can keep holding the Biden administration accountable, keep holding the Wolf administration accountable, keep holding legislators at both levels accountable. And when we do that, when we make our voices heard, every call, every letter, every email really does count. And it does help push our message. So that is it, sort of a Pennsylvania wrap up. So Seth?
Katie, thank you so much for laying all of that out as beautifully as you did as well, for all of your hard work as well, and for being here with us tonight. And a big thank you to both you and Madeleine for putting a voice to all of this amazing work that all these organizations are doing and centering environmental justice and legislative accountability and all of these things. It is so vital for pushing forward these bold changes that we so desperately need. So thank you for all of your hard work as well. We do have a few questions in the chat box now. And if anybody has additional questions, please feel free to throw them in there. But I'm going to pass off one of these, which is maybe more of on the federal side, but how does the recent West Virginia versus EPA ruling impact some potential upcoming executive actions by the Biden administration?
Yeah, thanks, Seth. So, we're disappointed with the ruling that came out, but not surprised given the makeup of the court at this time. So the final decision from the court was not quite as bad as we feared it could be. They didn't completely get rid of EPA's ability to regulate greenhouse gases, but they did severely limit what the EPA is able to require of power plants under the Clean Air Act. So, but that means that we still have other pieces under the Clean Air Act that we can use. So there's a lot of other traditional air pollutants that are regulated from power plants, like NOx and SOx, that have co-benefits for climate. As I mentioned, methane pollution will also be regulated under part of the Clean Air Act, and methane is incredibly damaging greenhouse gas. So there are a lot of other regulations that the EPA can do that are targeting other pollutants that will get at climate action. And then there are other pieces of the Clean Air Act, different titles that they can use to go after carbon pollution specifically, and some more inside what they call inside the fence line options that the agency still has to require emissions reductions from power plants. So like energy efficiency upgrades, other things that aren't necessarily forcing them to switch their sources of energy. So we have a lot of options still under the Clean Air Act to take action on climate, and we still have that authority and that directive that the EPA needs to address greenhouse gases. So that's good. Yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Madeleine. I appreciate that answer, and I'm glad to hear that it wasn't as bad as it could have been with all these decisions. It's been tough, but it's really good to hear that we still have some good paths moving forward. We do have another question, similar to the Natural Resource Defense Council. Does LCB have a team of lawyers to sue companies and individuals who commit environmental crimes? I think LCB should spend more time suing, not in an aggressive way, and that these companies sometimes don't understand anything else than these actions.
Yeah, so LCV has not been a group that's historically done a lot of lawsuits. We did do one. It started in 2017 and was final decision in 2021 that went after rollbacks to protections for the Arctic Ocean for drilling. And we actually won that lawsuit. So that was really great. Helped protect part of the Arctic Ocean from drilling. But I think for LCV, our theory of change has been the way that we show anti-environmental members of Congress who take money from polluters. How we hold them accountable is working in the elections to make sure they don't win the next time around, that there's consequences for voting against the environment, for taking money from polluters and doing their bidding. So that has been our theory of change. And we have a huge opportunity coming up in November, as you all know, to show Republicans in Congress that we won't stand for them standing in the way of climate action. And, you know, there's this doom and gloom narrative out there right now that Democrats are going to lose the House. And I don't think we should buy into that. That is not a foregone conclusion. Even recent polling shows that House races are neck and neck. And so we can win, and we can show anti-environment politicians that there's a price to be paid for voting against the environment and voting against what's best for the climate and our families. So that is how we are trying to change the game here. And Katie, I don't know if you want to jump in at all.
So Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, we are strategically aligned with Penn Future. Penn Future has an in-house legal team that we work with, consult with. We as CVPA, also like LCB, we do not directly go out and participate in suits, but we do work closely with the Penn Future legal team because that organization is a closely aligned strategic partner. But we also communicate very regularly, just like NRDC, Sierra Club National, the Clean Air Council. There are great organizations with a national and state presence that are within our coalitions here in state as well. And we have regular weekly check-ins too, so.
Yeah, and Katie, I think that's a good point, is like we all play a kind of different role and we all coordinate together to make sure that we've got all those bases covered. So NRDC, Earth Justice, Sierra Club, they have a lot of strong lawyers that are taking those the companies to court, and we fully support when they do that. And we all have our important roles to play to make sure we're holding people accountable across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answers, working with coalition partners, multi-pronged approach, absolutely. What can be done, this is a question from Elaine, what can be done about Amtrak's plan to install gas-fired burners in the 30th Street station?
I am not super intimately involved in that. Our partners in Philadelphia are, because it is a more localized issue. However, what I can tell you, although I'm not familiar where things are in that process specifically at this moment, is to look at the actions of Philadelphia City Council and bring all of your concerns there. Also connect with Seth Group on the ground for some of those local issues as well. I am sorry, but I can't remember if it has gone too far in the process, but there's definitely an avenue for advocacy for the Philadelphia City Council around that, because it's going to be them who ultimately approves each step of that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. We have another question from Stanley here. What's your position about green charcoal exploitation in Pennsylvania? And it's not a clean energy. I don't know if anyone has a take on that.
Katie?
We don't really have one other than, it's kind of greenwashing. It's not as I'm seeing another question here, which we can get to, is it's not up there with joining Reggie right now and making sure we invest the proceeds, but it is one of those things that's also up there with, we can burn our recycling to generate energy kind of situation.
Another one of those greenwashing energies that we hear so much about all the time. Thank you, Katie. I like this question a lot. How do you decide what actions are most likely to succeed and are worth pursuing?
I just led into that with Pennsylvania, and I'll have Madeleine follow up with LCV's perspective. We work in coalition a lot. So, this common agenda process, for example, anything that's in there is going to be something we look at. Sometimes legislators have ideas that we're like, oh my goodness, this might have a real chance. We're going to put more people power behind this legislation, even though we're still working on this over here. So in Pennsylvania, because we have the second largest legislature in the state, or in the country, of course in the state, in the country, and we have a 2-year full-time session. Luckily they're on vacation right now at home campaigning. There's a lot. There's over 7,000 bills right now. I don't think that's even counting resolutions. No, I cannot tell you what they all are, but that's how fast things move in Pennsylvania. So we always have our top priorities, those big, bold things. Reggie, increasing AEPS standards, going after real community solar legislation. But there's also always going to be some of these other smaller items, like we saw an opportunity at the beginning of last year to get massive conservation investments in Pennsylvania. 800, conservation, energy efficiency, water work, $850 million in this year's budget. I'm still doing a mental happy dance 2 weeks later, not quite 2 weeks later. And that is huge. We haven't seen that in a long time, but we saw that opportunity present itself and we focused our energy there. So like, this is bold, we can pass it. But that doesn't mean we weren't still talking to legislators about APS and things like that. So it's sort of those big things. However, our local folks, our field team, there's a lot more local issues that they look at. There's a land preservation petition going on right now in Bucks County. I want to say it's land preservation. Jess can correct me if I'm incorrect. Privatizing water systems at a local level is becoming a huge thing. And that's where our on the ground field team really comes in for those more localized issues. Madeleine?
Great. I think very similar in the coalition respect. I think just overall, like the 3 principles that really drive what LCV prioritizes is climate, environmental justice, and democracy. So those are our 3 guiding principles to help us figure out what we should work on. Similar to CVPA, at the beginning of or before the Biden administration took office and after the last election, we had a community-wide agenda planning event where we all kind of looked at what damage do we need to repair from what the Trump administration had done, and then what opportunities do we have in Congress, especially after we found out that we had senators from Georgia, what opportunities would exist in Congress to make progress on our priorities. And so, we've made some progress on all of those in the Biden administration, but we have a lot more that we need them to do. And we're working with our various partners and coalitions to help push the administration to get those. But there's a lot of different factors that go into the priorities. What are the opportunities there? Who are your champions? And does it get us toward the big goals of tackling climate change, making sure that we are addressing environmental justice, and are we making a fairer society where everybody's vote counts, and in the election? So a lot of different factors that go into all of that.
Yes, absolutely. Great answers across the board. And Katie, I agree with you. I was very heartened to hear about the environmental funding in the PA budget. And it's a real testament to the organizing work being done on the ground by environmental groups. We have another question here. Speaking of solar legislation, will community solar ever be legalized in PA? I would sign up in a minute, says Wendy.
I would too. Darn it. This is being recorded, so I can't say what I want to say. But not allowed to use a bad word. But I will say that we are getting closer. There is a lot more bipartisan support for it. There are two pieces of legislation right now. One is called local solar, one is called community solar. The local solar bill is the one that has gotten movement. We are neutral on it. It's very pro-utility, not so much pro-community. I could get into a half an hour lesson on net metering and how all of that works. I will put you to sleep. We can do a 9:30 webinar some other time to get you to bed. But there's also another community solar bill, and both of these are Republican led, because if a Republican is going to introduce something, they have the majority, it might move a little bit. That's how we got conservation funding passed. So we hope, especially going into next session after this election, we have the groundwork laid, especially with the community solar bill that we like a little bit more. Still not the dream legislation that we have a vision for, but I think probably better than the local solar bill. We really can move forward, I think, going into next session about community solar. One thing that I want to encourage every single one of you on this call to do, probably depending on where you live, there's a lot of opportunity in suburban and rural parts of this state. I'm going to leave Philadelphia aside. I don't know how many people on this call are from Philadelphia. I actually did see somebody who is on here that I know from a county just away from me, and I'm in rural PA. But please advocate with your local municipalities, your boroughs, your townships. Please advocate for them to contemplate where they can put solar to power at least municipal uses. There are 4 municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania right now where their municipal power is all solar, only 4. And we have the 3rd highest number of municipalities in the country. So one community, it's mine. We have a small solar field at our sewer plant. It powers the sewer plant, the water plant, and we get buyback for our borough building electric. And it saves the taxpayer dollars, it's good on the environment, and we get our electricity. And that's a really good local action that you can take, especially going into Pennsylvania municipal elections next year, to help push your municipal candidates on. That will get us doing something on solar before we see a community solar bill.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Katie, for answer there. We have another one here. With all these various pieces of legislation, executive actions, the private sector being pushed towards more sustainable practices, public opinion really coming into the factor here, and all these other avenues, what gives you the most hope today? We'll go with Madeleine.
Katie, you want me to go first? I think there's a couple things. like I mentioned in my remarks, 99% of the Democrats in the House and the Senate support action on climate. That is huge progress from the last time that we made a run at a national climate bill in 2009, when we had like 40 Democrats or something that voted against the bill in the House. And then we lost, in the Senate because we didn't have the votes there. And the progress that we have made in shifting Congress on climate is substantial and very significant. And also, environmental justice is a topic that is regularly talked about as part of these conversations of acting on climate. And that is really new and huge. The fact that we are looking at these potential investments from a justice angle and using them to address the historic racial inequities that exist in our society is really big. And the fact that the amount of people who want action on climate change in poll numbers continues to increase. The number of people who are demanding that their politicians actually act on climate, not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans, everyone across the board, that support for climate action continues to increase. And I think that, among many other things, gives me hope. And the fact that all of you are still with us. It was really hard with the Trump administration, right? Like, we saw them roll back so many things that we had worked hard for a very long time. And all of you stuck through the fight, and we worked really hard. And now we have a president who wants to be the most ambitious president on climate ever. We have a Congress that is willing to continue to fight. And, we got through all of that, and I see a really bright future for all of us. And we just got to keep pushing, but I think we can do it. We can win this fight.
Everything she said, plus, I think it's very interesting because in my specific position at CVPA, I oversee political and legislative. So it's very fascinating to me, the number of legislators, both parties, both the Senate and House chambers. It is indicative by how many people are calling me about what their score is right now. Can I get your endorsement? What's my score going to be? Did it go up from last time? And some people I haven't usually gotten a call from. And that is something tangible that I have seen in the last year of doing this. Obviously, some of us are on social media more than others. The amount of people who I never thought cared about climate issues clearly care. And that groundswell of support, especially when it was, hey, we have a different administration and a different Congress. We thought something good was going to happen. It hasn't happened. And the voices that have risen up from that, those are what inspire me and give me the hope to keep going. And it's actually kind of fun. There are some really hard fights. There are some things I'm not necessarily looking forward to. But frankly, people like you, people like all of you on this webinar who want to do actions, like the question right at the top of this call, hey, I want to do something, I'm good with phone calls. That is the hope part.
Yes, absolutely. Great answers again. You both give me hope, as well as everybody on this call today as well. So fantastic answers. I will now pass it over to Jess, who will talk a little bit about some of what CVPA has coming up and some ways to get engaged.
Sure. Thank you so much, Seth. And thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. If I haven't gotten the chance to meet you yet, my name is Jess Catterett, and I am our field director here at Conservation Voters of PA. So while Seth and his amazing team cover the Philadelphia region, the city of Philadelphia, if you live anywhere else in the state, our field team has got you covered. And so I'm going to drop some links in the chat for you guys. We have field coordinators coordinators in key strategic regions throughout the state. But even if you don't live in those regions, we're happy to help you take action. We're really grateful, as everyone has expressed on this call, that you've stuck with us and continue on in this movement to push for a pro-environment Pennsylvania. So in the chat, I'm going to drop the link to volunteer with us. If you're ready to go, you want to hear more about the opportunities to get engaged, definitely sign up to volunteer with us. I'm also going to drop the emails of our wonderful field coordinators who are across the state with us. And if you live in those specific regions, I encourage you to get in touch if you haven't already done so. And then once more, I'll drop in the chat, the biggest thing we've got coming up, in addition to the scorecard launch that Katie Blume referenced, is the Common Agenda launch. And so there are exciting events happening throughout the state. We will have links to sign up in the follow-up emails to come, but mark the dates and times on your calendar if you live in any of these regions that I'm about to drop in the chat. And with that, I'll thank you again for all of your action and effort that you've done so far, and I'll pass it back to Seth.
Thank you, Jess. I'll echo all those sentiments. It is so great to have you all here tonight. And I just want to give a big virtual round of applause to our amazing speakers tonight, to Jess, CVPA, our amazing co-sponsor at the Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, as well as to each of you for taking the time to be here tonight and to stay engaged. We've heard about so many topics tonight and different avenues to get involved and to take action. As we've talked about, this really is an all hands on deck moment, and support for these initiatives around the country and around the world are really pushing the needle towards a more promising and equitable future. We're going to be dropping some links in the chat as well. As Jess mentioned, we are very much based in the Philadelphia area. We would love to hear from you if you live in that area. If outside that area, you are more than welcome. We would encourage you to click on some of those links that Jess is dropping. So, please join us in saying that we really cannot be accepting the unacceptable. We cannot accept more stalling, more inaction, more environmental injustice, and more siding with polluters by our elected officials. Our team, as does CVPA, offers plenty of volunteering opportunities. We have phone banking, text banking, letter writing, internships to learn more all about grassroots organizing. But we can do both virtual and in person. We have an office in Mount Airy. We would love to see you there, but we can also do all of our actions virtually as well. So again, please take action with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe, stay cool in this heat wave that we're experiencing right now. Please continue to stay engaged, and please remember that our Earth is worth fighting for. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.